$500 drone, a $3 million missile to shoot it down. Do the math, and then do it 10,000 times a day across a 1,000-kilometer front line. Modern warfare has a new equation, and the side spending more is not winning. These are 15 times in history, and today, we're a cheap weapon humiliated an expensive one, and change the way every military on Earth thinks about war. $500 FPV drone versus $3 million Patriot PAC-3. Ukraine versus United States. Ukraine produces 4 million FPV kamikaze drones per year. Each costs between $200 and $500. Carbon fiber frame, commercial motors, a GoPro-style camera, and a repurposed artillery shell as a warhead. The Patriot PAC-3 Interceptor missile costs $3 million per round. When Russia uses cheap drones to force Ukraine to expend Patriot interceptors, the math is catastrophic for the defender. One Patriot battery holds a finite number of missiles, each costing 6,000 times more than what it is destroying. Ukraine solved this by reserving Patriot for ballistic missiles and using cheaper gun-based systems against drones. But the problem does not disappear. It is the defining financial equation of 21st century air defense, and nobody has solved it yet. $2,000 Houthi drone versus $2 million SM-2 missile, Yemen versus United States. On January 10, 2024, the USS gravely fired a $2 million SM-2 Interceptor to destroy a Houthi drone worth approximately $2,000. Cost ratio, 1,000 to 1. Since November 2023, Houthi forces have launched hundreds of such drones and missiles at commercial shipping in the Red Sea, forcing the US Navy to expend interceptors at a rate that began raising serious questions about magazine depth. The Houthis, a non-state actor in one of the poorest countries on Earth, achieved a strategic effect by simply existing as a threat. Global shipping through the Bab al-Mandab Strait dropped by over 50%. They did not need to sink a ship. They needed to make the math unsustainable. $20,000 Shahed 136 versus $4 million Patriot Interceptor. Iran versus United States. Iran's Shahed 136 costs between $20,000 and $50,000 per unit. The Patriot Interceptor fired to destroy it costs $4 million. Russia purchases them by the thousands and launches them in waves of 100 to 200 per night against Ukrainian cities. A single saturation attack of 150 Shaheds costs Russia $3 to $7 million. The air defense response costs Ukraine and its allies $400 to $600 million. By 2026, Iran upgraded the Shahed's engine to a turbojet, doubling its speed to 600 kilometers per hour and defeating many gun-based point defense systems, forcing more expensive interceptors to be used. The economic logic is simple and devastating. The attacker sets the price of the defense. $200 grenade drone versus $5 million Mi-8 helicopter, Ukraine versus Russia. In July 2024, a Ukrainian operator used a commercial FPV drone modified to drop a small grenade to destroy a Russian Mi-8 transport helicopter worth approximately $5 million. The drone cost under $200. The operator guided it from kilometers away wearing FPV goggles. The helicopter, a platform requiring years of training, millions in maintenance, and a crew of 3, was destroyed by a device assembled in a workshop. This single engagement crystallized the new reality of battlefield economics. The era in which expensive platforms could operate freely near the front line, protected by their cost and complexity, is over. $50 REDED versus $1 million MRAP. Afghanistan versus United States. The improvised explosive device is the asymmetric weapon of the 20th and 21st century. In Afghanistan and Iraq, insurgents constructed roadside bombs from artillery shells, fertilizer, and basic electronics for under $50. The United States responded by deploying mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, MRAPs, at a cost of $500,000 to $1 million each. The total MRAP program cost exceeded $40 billion. Insurgents responded by burying bombs deeper, stacking multiple devices, and targeting the vehicle's underbellies with shaped charges. The United States spent $40 billion to partially solve a $50 problem. The problem never went away. $35,000 Lancet drone versus $15 million Leopard 2 tank. Russia versus Germany. The Lancet loitering munition cost approximately $35,000. It orbits a target area, identifies armored vehicles through its optical seeker, and dives onto the thin top armor, the weakest point of any tank. In Ukraine, Lancets have destroyed multiple German-supplied Leopard 2 tanks worth $15 million each. Cost ratio, 428-1. The Leopard 2 is one of the most advanced tanks in the world, with composite armor, a 120mm gun, and decades of Bundeswehr refinement. The Lancet has a 3-kilogram warhead and a $35,000 price tag. Every major military on Earth has revised its armored vehicle doctrine as a direct result of this matchup. $300. Molotov cocktail versus $200,000. T-26 tank. Finland versus Soviet Union, 1940. During the Winter War of 1939 to 1940, Finnish soldiers improvised incendiary weapons from glass bottles filled with fuel and a lit wick, named Molotov cocktails after the Soviet foreign minister. A single bottle cost virtually nothing. Soviet T-26 light tanks cost approximately $200,000 in today's terms. Finnish soldiers discovered that throwing a burning bottle through the tank's ventilation slots or onto its engine deck caused the vehicle to catch fire and the crew to abandon it. Finland destroyed hundreds of Soviet tanks with this technique. The Soviet Union lost more armored vehicles to improvised glass bottles than to any other Finnish weapon system in the first weeks of the war. $500. RPG-7 versus $50 million. Black Hawk helicopter. Somalia versus United States. 1993. On October 3, 1993, Somali militia fighters used a RPG-7 rocket-propelled grenades, costing approximately $500 each, to shoot down 2 U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters in Mogadishu. Each helicopter was worth approximately $6 million. The battle that followed killed 18 American soldiers and forced a complete revaluation of U.S. intervention doctrine. The RPG-7 was designed in 1961. It has never been significantly improved. It costs $500. It has destroyed more modern military equipment than almost any other weapon in history because it is simple, available, and effective enough. The Black Hawk Down engagement did not change the military balance of Somalia. It changed American foreign policy for a decade. $5 million, Bayraktar TB2 versus $100 million, Buk M1 system, Ukraine versus Russia. In the opening weeks of the 2022 invasion, Ukrainian Bayraktar TB2 drones destroyed multiple Russian Buk M1 surface-to-air missile systems worth approximately $100 million each. The TB2 costs $5 million, a 20-to-1 cost ratio in the attacker's favor. More significantly, each Buk M1 destroyed degraded Russia's ability to protect its ground forces from air attack. The TB2 was not the most sophisticated drone in the world. It was slow, loud, and flew at predictable altitudes. But it exposed a critical vulnerability. Expensive air defense systems, when caught in the wrong configuration at the wrong moment, can be destroyed by a fraction of their own value. Every nation watching the early Ukraine footage immediately re-examined its air defense deployment doctrine. $1 million Neptune missile versus a $750 million Moskva cruiser, Ukraine versus Russia. On April 14, 2022, 2 Ukrainian Neptune anti-ship missiles struck the Moskva, flagship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. The ship sank. The Moskva weighed 12,000 tons, carried 16 Vulcan anti-ship missiles, and had served as the symbolic centerpiece of Russian naval power in the Black Sea. 2 Neptunes cost approximately $1 million combined. The Moskva cost $750 million to build and represented decades of Russian naval investment. Its loss forced the entire Russian Black Sea Fleet to withdraw from northwestern operational coverage, directly enabling Ukraine's grain corridor. One of the most strategically consequential naval actions since World War II was achieved with two missiles that cost less than a suburban house. $100 drone versus $3.5 billion. Iron Dome system, Hamas versus Israel. Israel's Iron Dome is the most sophisticated short-range air defense system ever deployed in active combat. It has intercepted thousands of rockets since 2011, with an interception rate exceeding 90%. Hamas and other Gaza-based groups began supplementing their rocket attacks with simple commercial drones modified to carry small explosive charges, costing approximately $100 each. Iron Dome was not designed to engage such targets efficiently. The radar cross-section is too small. The flight profile is too slow. Engaging them with Iron Dome interceptors costing $50,000 each is economically absurd. By 2023 to 2024, Israel was forced to develop supplementary gun-based and laser systems specifically to handle this low-cost threat. A $3.5 billion system forced to evolve because of a $100 drone. $1,000 fiber optic FPV versus $10 million electronic warfare system. Ukraine versus Russia. Russia deployed sophisticated electronic warfare systems in Ukraine designed to jam GPS and radio signals used by Ukrainian drones. They cost $10 million each and were highly effective, neutralizing entire categories of Ukrainian drone attacks. Ukraine's response: replace radio control with fiber optic cable. A fiber optic FPV drone unreels a thin cable behind it as it flies, transmitting video and control signals through glass fiber that cannot be jammed by any electronic warfare system. Unit cost: approximately $1,000. Russia's $10 million jamming systems became irrelevant against a $1,000 spool of cable. The counter was fielded within months. The innovation cycle in this war runs faster than any procurement system can respond. $30,000 UMPK kit versus $15 million F-16. Russia versus United States. Russia's UMPK glide bomb kit converts a Soviet-era unguided FAB-500 bomb into a precision-guided standoff weapon. The kit costs approximately $30,000. It gives the bomb a standoff range of up to 200 kilometers, keeping the Su-34 that delivers it outside the engagement envelope of most Ukrainian air defense. Ukraine received F-16S in 2024 at a cost of $15 million each. Those F-16S cannot safely operate within range of Russian air defense and cannot intercept Su-34s releasing UMPK bombs from 70 kilometers away before the bombs are released. A $30,000 bolt-on wing kit has effectively neutralized a $15 million fighter's ability to prevent its city from being bombed by changing the physics of the delivery before the fighter can engage. $500,000 Houthi missile versus $13 billion USS Eisenhower. Yemen versus United States. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower is a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier worth approximately $13 billion. It carries 70 aircraft and a crew of 6,000. In 2024, the Eisenhower was deployed to the Red Sea in response to Houthi attacks on shipping. The Houthis launched anti-ship ballistic missiles and drones, costing between $100,000 and $500,000 each at vessels in the region. The Eisenhower itself was not struck, but the carrier and its strike group expended hundreds of Interceptor missiles and conducted hundreds of airstrikes against Houthi launch sites. The cost of the American response vastly exceeded the cost of the Houthi threat. A carrier group costing tens of billions of dollars was tactically stalemated by a non-state actor with a missile program funded by Iran. $200 commercial drone versus $500 million. B-52 bomber. ISIS versus United States ISIS fighters in Syria and Iraq modified commercial DJI quadcopters costing approximately $200 each. to drop small grenades and mortar shells on U.S. Allied positions. The U.S. Air Force flew B-52 Stratofortress bombers worth $500 million each to bomb ISIS positions in response. Cost ratio: 2,500,000 to 1. A B-52 dropping $50,000 of precision munitions on a position identified by a $200 drone that had been modified with $50 of hardware to drop $30 grenades. The absurdity of this ratio defines the fundamental problem of great power military spending in the age of commercial technology. The most expensive military machines in history are being employed against threats assembled from parts available on Amazon.